Supergiant Games is an indie studio known for absolutely smashing games like Bastion, Pyre, and Transistor, and their latest release surpasses these gems' popularity combined. Hades is a single-player roguelite released in September 2020 for PC, Mac, and Switch. Set in the underworld of ancient Greek mythology, you play as Zagreus, son of Hades, prince of hell, trying to escape through Tartarus and the other realms of the underworld to reach the surface. Being a roguelite, your opposition is room after room of semi-randomly generated enemies, mini-bosses, full bosses, and the gods themselves. As expected, you're going to die a lot in your escape attempts. All roguelites play around with the idea of dying, losing progress, and trying again, but the light part of that moniker tends to indicate that even failed runs will still earn you some keepsakes. Upgrades, weapons, things that can make the next life go a little faster. And using the setting as a magnifier, Hades perfectly incorporates the plot into its take on roguelites. So, difficulty-wise, Hades is definitely up there as far as the genre goes. I'm able to successfully complete runs every now and again as someone who's fairly familiar with the style of play, but most of the time I'll struggle at bosses or get too greedy and go for more difficult areas in search of better rewards. A typical game of Hades for me consists of blasting through Tartarus, the first area, getting some darkness and gemstones to spend on upgrades back home, permanent increases to health, damage, and the like, then working through Asphodel and earning some powerful boons for this particular run from the Olympian gods. Zeus, Poseidon, Artemis, you know the ones. They offer specific powers and secondary effects, all of which wash away as soon as death takes over. And that's sped along sometimes when I have to choose one god over another and invoke the other's wrath. After slaying the Bone Hydra, the third area really ups the difficulty for me. Elysium is full of armored foes and enemies who will regenerate if you don't quickly defeat their souls after killing their corporeal form. More powerful boons start being offered for higher risk, often costing me much of my difficult to regenerate HP, and the boss fight of this realm usually takes one or two death defiances from me, which kick in upon losing all my health, a limited resource which ups your HP back to half upon what would otherwise be your death. The longer I'm in the biomes of hell, the more chipped away my resources become. I typically start to lose health and death defiances faster than I can recover them at this point. And then, in the Temple of Styx, I get greedy. I always get greedy, exploring every room unnecessarily for more upgrades, or in hopes of finding shops to recharge my uses of death defiance. And the poison from the enemies of this realm eats away at my health, only further softening me up for the final boss. Walking into the ending, all the boons, health, and weapon upgrades and decisions I've made will congeal together to form a last hurrah. It's make or break. I won't show the final boss for spoilers' sake, but rest assured that win or lose, I'm want to come back for another run. Hades is a game meant to be replayed over and over with new randomly generated runs, using different weapons and boons, customizing yourself to try and get better time, better score, but the only way for Zagreus to return and start a new run is to allow himself to die. Be it by the forces of nature or just plain force, death will find you in the end if you wish to play again. Upon dying, the effectively immortal Zagreus steps out of the pool of Styx back home to the House of Hades. Various Greek gods and other immortals such as Hypnos, Thanos, and called him fucking Thanos. Various Greek gods and other immortals such as Hypnos, Thanatos, and Hades will greet Zag after his failed attempts. Here in this house Zagreus so wishes to take flight from, you can upgrade the decor, invest in the architecture of your escape route to better your odds, and most importantly, chat up the residents. Get to know the immortals better, and even romance them if you fancy. Hades is as much about the conversation as it is the opposition. No one really tries to stop Zagreus from attempting another escape, as the denizens of the house are immortal or already dead, so killing one another would simply prove an inconvenience when you're so close to your effective respawn point. So fights are more of a formality in an attempt to dissuade Zagreus from future escapes. Meg, for instance, will be one of the first bosses you fight on many an escape, and you'll talk cordially before beating the life out of one another, and then can share a drink with each other back at the house. Sure, there are some, especially Hades, who are particularly keen on preventing Zagreus from ever seeing the light of day, for reasons that get developed upon as you further the narrative, and these people will stop at nothing to slow Zagreus down. But Zag zags on him by taking his failures as lessons and enlisting his friends and the gods of Olympus to increase his odds of escape, finding darkness and gemstones to buy by permanent upgrades, fulfilling minor prophecies to gain rewards, and completing bounties to gain prizes which outlast their given run. Death in Hades is not a punishment, it's a commodity. Enough deaths add up to increased overall value. Most roguelites have some kind of excuse for failed runs. Either your character is knocked unconscious and wakes up at the entrance, or it's implied the only canonical run is the successful one. Hades, however, fully anticipates and assumes your death as a kindness. Rather than coming up for a reason for the genre, Hades is designed in a way which makes the genre key. And sure, there are some characters who will make fun of you for failure, even indirectly, but others will keep encouraging you to escape, cheering you on, or offering you support where they can. There's a key difference between the characters in a game antagonizing your deaths and the game itself doing so. The latter breeds contempt to the game itself, whereas the former simply forms opinions to the cast, and influences who you'll decide to talk to and side with. Every run is increased value to your character, as is every death. How valuable a particular run is based on your decision-making and skill. Often, you'll be faced with a choice between, say, darkness used to buy permanent upgrades in the house, or coin used to buy temporary upgrades from Charon within a given run. Choosing between bettering your chances of winning this particular run or your future runs. And these decisions grow easier as you make progress in the narrative, buying upgrades from the contractor to gain temporary per-run upgrades from rewards which would otherwise only benefit you once you're killed. Gaining extra max HP in an escape attempt when you pick up darkness, for instance. Not only that, but ending runs, successfully or otherwise, resets conversations, as well as the ability to gift nectar flasks to people you wish to get to know better, even some enemies. So the more runs you do and the more you die, the better you get to know your fellow gods and ghosts. A genre designed for several short play sessions through the main game loop, like a roguelite, is perfect for exploring various branching story paths, as well as the inevitability of death. And Supergiant's ability to add near-endless, fully acted, well-written dialogue to their games means the well of conversation will never dry out. I don't know if I've ever seen repeated dialogue in Hades, with the exception of minor lines like those for fishing. Anyways, even characters whose appearances are up to the fates, like Chaos, have such interesting conversations that I'm always willing to take detours to see them. Chaos in particular incurs damage to visit, and honestly, I don't even mind. Risk-reward is a mechanic as old as time in games, particularly roguelites. But the risk being ending your run, with the reward being character development, well, it's a sign of how fascinating the story of Hades can be that I'm willing to make that trade-off consistently. Hades is a game where the story will come as you play it successfully or otherwise. Death isn't a punishment, it's simply a commodity, a material which makes up the fabric of the gameplay and plot. From a design standpoint, it teaches us that if something is going to be an inevitability in your game anyways, like death, you might as well build around it rather than against it. Other games such as Rogue Legacy have played with this in the past, however, using the setting and narrative to its full advantage, Hades utilizes death in the most creative way I've ever seen from a roguelite. A link to where you can check out Hades is below, and while you're down there, I'd appreciate if you'd consider subscribing or following me on Twitter. And happy holidays, by the way. Cheers to a better year in 2021. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and take it easy.